always been an avid Disney fan, so I decided to audition for any Disney role available at Disney World. Luckily at the time, the character of Boo from Monsters Incorporated was up for grabs. I felt an instant connection with this character. I knew that I had a chance of getting the role because of my theater education and experience, small facial contours and petite body with a height of 4'7", and adorable anime-like features, which I often used for cosplay back in college. 3 days after the audition, I received a call from Disney World, telling me I already got the job. It was a moment of sheer bliss. On my first day of work, I met with 2 other actors playing the roles of Sully, the giant blue monster whom I would refer to as Kitty, and Mike Wazowski, the little green monster who's Sully's one-eyed best friend. The man playing Mike Wazowski was a funny guy who'd tell us stories about his travels worldwide. Meanwhile, the man playing Kitty was always on point with his character. After our first show on stage, we were assigned to walk along the cobblestone roads of Disney World to greet families and kids, take photos, and interact with the children by giving a few playful scares. Once we finally ended our shift, Mike invited Kitty and I for a couple of drinks. The man playing the role of the green monster was Richard, a guy with a height of 5'5" and moderately pigmented brown skin. As we sat in the bar, I was surprised to see the man playing Kitty still wearing his costume. Hey, buddy, isn't it, hot in there? Richard asked, a bit concerned.
Oh, don't worry, Mike. I've never been better.
Then he gave us the thumbs up, gazing at the face of the blue monster whose expression was vacant. Having a fake smile that matched its dead eyes made it impossible for Richard and I to know what he was thinking about. But Richard didn't seem to mind. He simply shrugged it off and said, "Alright, whatever floats your boat, dude." Being a former cosplayer, I understood the eccentricities of artists who became attached to their favorite characters, so it didn't bother me at first. However, as the weeks passed, I wondered why I never saw the man behind the blue monster. Even after work, he would still wear the costume, but it only got more bizarre when he would always follow me to the bus station. I attempted to engage in a normal conversation to mitigate the awkward situation. However, it would always end up with him staring at me for a long time or saying something like,
That's really funny, Boo, but don't stay up too late. Growing kids need more sleep.
What was up with this guy? I've met a lot of weird guys in the cosplaying world, and I've known a couple of method actors who would fully immerse themselves in their characters to provide a more authentic performance. But none of them were as uncanny as he was. It was like he was in kitty mode 24/7. It was beginning to creep me out. One night after the work shift, I approached Kitty in the dressing room and told him,
"Hey, can I have a word with you?"
I sincerely asked. He kneeled down like he was talking to a kid and said,
Sure, Boo. Anything for my little girl.
"Look, I understand how much you love James Sullivan, aka Kitty. Trust me, I know the feeling and experience, but maybe you'd like to cut down a little and be more acquainted with reality,"
I replied, attempting to avoid any aggressive reactions. For the next couple of minutes, he just stared at me. It was extremely unsettling. I was about to turn around and leave, but he grabbed my wrist and said,
Boo, I'm sorry. Did Kitty do something to make you angry?
I yanked my arm, completely baffled.
"Let go of me, you freak!"
The words came out of my mouth without any careful thought.
I just want to be with you, Boo. There are other monsters out there who aren't as kind as Mike and I.
He then hardened his grip and said,
I need to keep you close to protect you from them.
My heart pounded as my mind went blank. Then, moments later, we heard the door open. It was Richard in his Mike costume. Seeing that Kitty clutched my wrist, he asked, Sully, is everything okay? Kitty slowly let go of me and said,
I need to keep her safe, Mike. You understand, don't you?
Yes, big guy, I understand. But she's a big girl now, so I'm sure she can handle herself, alright? Richard tried to keep the blue monster from exaggerating even further.
Mike, what the hell are you saying? Randall is still out there and he can get his hands on Boo at any time. I need to keep an eye on her.
Kitty argued, his voice prominent. No, you don't. Look, I really think we should go to the... Before Richard could finish, Kitty violently slammed him against the locker.
I thought you were my best friend, Mike! Why won't you listen to me?
Then, he punched the locker an inch away from Richard's face, creating a dent that left Richard and I to our imagination. If that fist had ended on Richard's face, he would have been badly injured. To ease his belligerence, Kitty took a deep breath before banging the door behind him as he left the room. At that moment, I understood how Richard felt. We were silent, confused, afraid. The following day I went to work, ensuring that I was never alone with that creep. From a distance, I saw Kitty conversing with other staff members from the production team. They all seemed to be laughing and enjoying themselves. When I finally reported Kitty to the manager, he thanked me and told me that he and security would look into it. For that, I was extremely grateful. One night, I was relieved to arrive home safely after clocking out. I did my usual routine of having dinner and watching television in my bedroom until I hit the sack. Moments later, I jolted as I woke up to the sound of banging and growling coming from outside my bedroom. My heart throbbed in trepidation as moments later, I could hear the mysterious person say,
"Open up, Boo! It's me, Kitty! Come on, let me in!"
I grabbed my cell phone and hid in the closet. My eyes were focused on dialing 911 when I suddenly noticed that the banging had ceased. When I looked through the narrow slits of the closet, I saw a large figure standing directly outside. Then, the shutter doors were forcefully opened.
"There you are, Boo! I found you!"
The next story is a legendary tale that has surfaced the internet for a while now. A lot of you might have heard of quote-unquote Mr. One-Way. The video shown here doesn't seem like much has happened, but something eerily disturbing is happening before your very eyes. More context will be disclosed during and at the end of the story. Here's a bizarre, dramatized version of the occurrence. If you look into the history of the Disneyland theme park, you're bound to come across the legend of a Mr. One-Way, a ghost who is bound to ride Space Mountain for eternity. I'm an inside perspective that's been missing for all these years. I just haven't been able to speak until now. I was recently laid off by Disney, and after working with them for over 40 years and agreeing to go under their NDA, the crooks managed to find a way to swindle me out of my entire pension. Eventually, of course, he was fired, but even then, I wouldn't say he was a normal guy. Bob wasn't his real name either. I worked mechanical construction with him, where we were part of the team of engineers responsible for the construction, maintenance, and renovation of all the theme park's many rides. Back in the old days, it was a sweet gig, but even then, we all took it with about the same amount of enthusiasm as we would with any other job. Not Bob, though. Bob was different. Bob was a roller coaster enthusiast. He worked on the rides with the same attitude that I imagine a spoiled little kid would play with toy models. The man was a little psychotic, and I mean that seriously. But when we moved on from the carnival-type rides to the real roller coasters is when things became severe. The first coaster we ever worked on together was Space Mountain. For some reason, Space Mountain was special to Bob. He would never take breaks, and he expected us all to do the same. "Hey Bob, it's lunchtime. You coming?" "There's no time to slack off! I'll come once this baby gets built." "I can't work when I'm hungry, Bob. Neither should you." "You're all just a bunch of slackers! You do not care about this ride like I do! You're just here for the money! Why don't you call Aladdin, go on his magic carpet, and get the hell out of my face?" The rest of the guys and I just brushed him off. At first, we didn't mind that he was picking up the slack, but then his passion became an obsession. None of us really talked about it, but I definitely noticed. When we left in the evening, he stayed behind just to finish up, and when we arrived in the morning, he was already there, slaving away. His only reason for visiting the break room was to make a whole pot of coffee, pour the entire thing into his thermos, then walk out. I figure it must have been around 20 cups of coffee every day. One day, I decided to arrive to work about 20 minutes early just to see what was up, and you wouldn't believe it, but I caught Bob sleeping in one of the ride cars. He was fully clothed and still holding his tools, like he'd been fighting the urge to sleep but had finally lost. I nudged his boot and he shot awake. His eyes were wild and bloodshot, and he immediately started back up on work like I'd cracked the whip at him. I tried to calm him down, but it was of no use. "Bob, you know it's okay to sleep, right? Maybe you should go home tonight and recharge." "This roller coaster ain't gonna build itself! Magic isn't real!" "Bob, calm down! Rome wasn't built in a day. You're starting to look a little crazy now." "You see this right here? This car is like my baby boy, and this track, the bosom of my matronly wife. She gives birth and cares for my children. In return, I grease her gears, tighten her bolts, weld her joints, and most of all, I prepare our children for the responsibility of the life ahead of them. Are you gonna do that, Wilson? Okay. No, Bobby, I'll leave all of that to you. You just remember to take care of yourself, okay? Up until then, I never understood the extent to which Bob had demented himself. Despite the sleep deprivation and the insanity, he was doing exceptional work. We ended up finishing the project a few months ahead of schedule because of Bob's extra effort. But that was not the end of Bob's obsession. He was assigned to work on the next roller coaster project, but he never showed up. He was caught several times riding Space Mountain with the park patrons instead of working. Eventually, of course, he was fired, but even though they revoked his free pass into the park, there were daily sightings of Bob in the line to Space Mountain. He probably dumped his life savings into park tickets. That, or he was using his knowledge of the park to sneak in illegally. One night, I got a call at 3 in the morning, and who else would be up at that hour but Bob? Dude, why the hell are you calling me at 3 in the morning? Well, I'm so glad you're up. I'm sorry to surprise you, but I'm getting married. I've called all the guys and told them to come, but I want you to be the best man. Okay. I'm really happy for you. When's the wedding? It's tonight, at the top of Space Mountain. Don't worry about ironing your tux, because I want the ceremony to take place on the ride itself. The wind will blow out all the wrinkles. Bob, I don't know if this is the best idea. Strictly speaking, none of us are allowed on site after working hours. Forget about that. I'm headed over there now. You better be there. I was reluctant to go, but I felt like I had to be there to make sure things didn't go any worse. I threw on my old tuxedo and drove anxiously to the park, using the employee entrance to get in there after hours. There, I met Bob at the start of the ride. Bob? How did you get in here? And where's the bride? You're looking right at her! Jeez, not more of this crap. Come on, Bob. Don't judge me, Will. None of the other guys showed up, so you'll have to do the ceremony, okay? Ceremony? I'm no reverend. It doesn't have to be official. All you have to say is, I now pronounce you husband and wife. I now pronounce you husband and wife. There. Happy? All of a sudden, he was kissing the roller coaster, but not in a tasteful, modest way like at a proper wedding ceremony. It was like some hormonal teenagers going at it in a very objectionably immoral way. Lots of tongue drooling and moaning. Ugh, I couldn't take it anymore. Bob! Hey! Cut it out! Sorry. We'll save it for the honeymoon. You're still the best man, though. Would you please join us on our final ride together as husband and wife? Fine, but then I'm leaving. What the hell am I doing with my life? I climbed into the seat behind him. Then we blasted off and zoomed through the ride. The whole time I was thinking I was going to lose my job over this, but Bob was hooting and hollering and screaming like a little kid, even though he probably knew every twist and turn by heart. However, about halfway through, Bob's head and arms whipped back towards me. He was completely stiff and motionless, while flailing around with the turbulence of the ride. As soon as we finished, I jumped out to see what was up with him, but I immediately recognized that he'd passed on. He was gone. I called park security and a whole parade of ambulances, police cars, and firefighters came through. I thought I was about to be accused of murder, but the death was ruled a heart attack, probably from his constant overuse of caffeine and his general instability. I expected it to come out on the news the next day, then the whole thing was swept under the rug, as Mr. Disney didn't want to harm the popularity of his newest attraction. I was put under non-disclosure, but even with my silence, the story got out that there was something unnatural, even supernatural, going on with Space Mountain at Disneyland. People swearing they'd met Bob in line and even rode with him, only for him to disappear. Even security footage showing his shadowy presence. Now, I've never been one to believe in that stuff, but in this case, I make an exception. There really is something unholy haunting that ride.
We just had our final exams, and after a grueling week of study and no play, I was itching to celebrate it with a friend. So after school, my mom dropped me and my friend Sam off at Disney World and told us to give her a call once we were done. As we entered the theme park, dancing lights and bright smiles surrounded us. I couldn't help but marvel at the magnificence of this kingdom. When we laid our eyes on the dog whose elastic body carried jolly children as it strode along steel bars, we knew we wanted to go on the Slinky Dog Dash. Swinging my hands in the air, I shouted,
Best day ever!
Sam, sitting next to me, was also screaming in sheer bliss. But as we left the platform, I had a nagging feeling that someone was watching me. I looked over my shoulder, and amidst a sea of people, my line of sight caught a familiar figure standing erect in front of a candy store a few meters from where Sam and I were at. It was a mascot of a famous character that most children my age would instantly recognize, Disney's Mickey Mouse. I never had any qualms or phobia over mascots before, and in a theme park like Disney World, it's no surprise that we'd find a myriad of mascots frolicking the area to entertain zestful kids like Sam and I. So why did I feel restless about this one? Well, for one thing, while all the other Disney characters were singing and dancing as they interacted with the visitors, Mickey Mouse was just standing there, his hands neatly tucked into his suit pockets, staring at me the entire time. Like a shadow overhead, I was clouded by uncertainty and anxiety. So at that moment, I diverted my attention. In the hours that passed, we were captivated by several other attractions such as the Triceratops Spin, the Barnstormer, Astro Orbiter, Tomorrowland Speedway, Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, and many more. We went on several spinning rides that made me want to puke. So me and Sam dropped by the food court, which made him anything but pleased. My mom just called and told me that I've only got an hour left before I have to head home. So pull yourself together and let's ride some more, you wimp, he said with a sullen look. Sam was my best friend because of our love for games and theme parks. However, I would sometimes be offended by his tone and treatment. So this time I tried to speak my mind. Hey, you know, that wasn't very nice. He gazed at me, still glowering, and said, Yeah, whatever. Stop acting like you're in kindergarten and man up a little, okay? Come on, I reckon we can still go on 2 more rides. He took a sip of his drink and told me he had to go to the restroom. I sat there in the food court, drumming my fingers on the table, feeling a bit irritated. Since I was looking down, I couldn't see if anyone was approaching me. Then, suddenly I heard the piercing sound of metal as the chair in front of me moved.
Finally, you took so long!
I stopped midway, realizing that it wasn't Sam but a mascot sitting right in front of me. It was the same mascot I saw earlier, his eyes an endless void of darkness. Mickey, what are you doing here? I asked, fiddling with my fingers. A couple minutes passed and he remained silent, making me very uncomfortable. So I said, Well, Mickey, thanks for joining me, but...
Come with me, Tom. I'll take you somewhere fun.
Mickey finally spoke. Aghast, I stepped away from my chair and ran towards the restroom where I bumped into Sam.
Hey, what's wrong with you? Why are you so fidgety all of a sudden?
He asked, concerned and annoyed at the same time. Sam, there was a Mickey Mouse mascot earlier today. At first he was just gazing at me from afar, but now he asked me to come with him somewhere. Something's not right, dude, I finally told him. He looked at me, puzzled.
Yeah, something's definitely wrong with you today. I mean, it's freaking Mickey Mouse, dude. Everybody loves him.
I struggled to snap out of it and said, I don't know then. Let's just go for another ride. As we exited the platform, someone yanked me to the side. When I turned to look, it was him. Mickey. His grip was firm, and this time he said,
Take me with you, Tom. Is that your friend over there? Trust me, Tom. He's a rotten egg.
Instinctively, I backed away. But instead of scurrying, I asked him indignantly,
How do you know my name?
With a joyful yet sinister tone, he said,
That doesn't matter, Tommy. What matters is that your friend is planning to get rid of you for good. And you won't let that happen, will you?
That's not true! Stay away from me!
I yelled as I ran away to meet up with Sam. Something didn't sit well with me at that moment. I felt the sudden urge to leave, but Sam insisted that we go on more rides. That's when I pitched the idea of taking an Uber to another local theme park that I searched on Google Maps. It took some convincing, but Sam eventually broke and followed suit. We ended up at a park called Icon and were immediately lined up at the first attraction that caught our eyes, the Drop Tower. I knew we'd have some of the best views from up there, but as we were lining up, I heard a voice behind me say,
Huh? He's gonna kill you if you don't get to him first, Tommy.
Looking back, I then saw Mickey hovering over me. I yelled,
Leave me alone or I'm calling the cops!
Infuriated, Sam punched me on my shoulder and said,
What the hell is wrong with you? Next time I'm coming back here with Ryan and Chuck, and you're not invited. Got that?
All guests, please begin aboarding the drop tower. I repeat, all guests, please begin aboarding the drop tower. I was seated between Sam and Mickey. As the ride rose to its peak, Mickey kept egging me on, saying,
He's a bad kid, Tommy. Do it!
Outraged, I replied.
No, I can't! Do it now!
Then, in a split second, I reached over and unbuckled Sam's seatbelt.
What the hell are you doing?
I then grabbed Sam by his neck and pushed him off the ride. I watched him plummet from a height of 400 feet. Sam bellowed like he never had before. The next thing I knew, a pool of blood painted the pavement down below. Everyone let out a horrifying scream except for me. The staff rushed in, attempting to save me. Then, Mickey said,
See, Tommy? That's how you man up.
but when I looked next to me, Mickey had vanished. As I watched the commotion happen before my very eyes, my lips curled into a smile. But
Come with me, Tom. I'll take you somewhere fun.